Hi, welcome back for another month of movie reviews. I am Danielle Findlay, and I am the guest host here at FrankieSense and More. And I'm here with my new friend, my movie friend, Brent Marchant. How are you, Brent?
Good. How are you? It's good
I'm
to see you
super
again.
good. Good to see you again as well. I can't wait to talk about these movies that you've picked. It's such an incredible variety of documentaries that we're going to be speaking about. But just before we go into that, I just wanted to highlight who you are and what you do. You are a blogger, an author, a movie critic. You've written three incredible books. Have you written more? Are you on a new book?
I've got a couple others in the works. Yes.
Wow, I can't wait to hear about that. But I want our listeners and our viewers to be able to reach out to you. So brentmarchant.com if they want to reach out to you and see all the great things that you have going on.
It's all there,
Perfect.
including
Awesome.
including some free samples for people to download if they want.
Oh,
Keep
who
that in mind.
doesn't like free stuff?
Freebies are always great. So,
Freebies are amazing. That's awesome. I'm going to check it out as well. Okay, without further ado, let's jump right into things.
okay. So one thing about this show that's a little different is the fact that we're focusing primarily on documentaries today because there has been just a tremendous wealth of documentaries that have come out this summer. They've kind of helped us step up and fill the void for what's been going on with the typical distribution of summertime films, which have been delayed because of production schedules due to COVID and so forth. So, but the thing that's really been good about this is it's helped to make documentaries even more respectable than they typically have been. They've always been kind of treated sort of like the film industry's stepchild in some ways.
Mm-hmm.
But now you have, because they've become so prominent this summer, you have really seen the level of respect for this genre go up. And I'm really glad to see that because there are some great, great, great films here. A number of the ones we're going to talk about today premiered not long ago at the American Film Institute Documentary Film Festival, otherwise known as AFI Docs, which I heartily recommend if anybody wants to attend in the future, either by streaming or live. They had a combination event this year. But there are some others that also came out through other channels as well. So with no further ado, I mean, here's what we've got. Our first film on the list is an excellent, excellent, excellent documentary called Summer of Soul, or When the Revolution Could Not Be Televised. And this is a film that tells the story of the Harlem Culture Festival, which took place in the summer of 1969. It was an event that was a 6-week concert series that featured a tremendous array of talent in the Black and Latino community, and was just phenomenal in so many ways. It drew huge crowds, and it featured a lineup with the likes of Stevie Wonder, Mahalia Jackson, Nina Simone, The Fifth Dimension, Gladys Knight and the Pips, Sly and the Family Stone. I mean, I could just keep going on and on and on. And it was recorded in hopes that it would be, sold as a movie or a television series. But when the event was over with, there were no takers. It absolutely was stunning. It's hard to believe at this day and age that nobody was interested in this.
Really?
Yeah, but there were absolutely no takers for this footage, and so it sat in a basement for 50 years, untouched, unscreened.
Wow.
And because of the fact that it was unscreened and the event didn't get any further promotion, many people forgot about it. They completely don't remember it taking place, even though it had crowds that rivaled another music festival that took place the same summer and earned the event the nickname the Black Woodstock. Fortunately, this material was rescued and was put together into this new documentary, featuring a wealth of concert footage from the weekend events, and also included commentary from some people who attended and some people who looked upon it and were commenting on the cultural significance of this event for the time, because it really did a lot to launch the Black Power movement, which was sort of an outgrowth of the Civil Rights movement. And it really brought African American culture to a new level of appreciation and respect in American society at large that it didn't previously have. Still in all, it's hard to believe that this movie sat
For that long.
all that
And like
time.
nobody grasped it. Nobody
No,
saw the,
no, I mean, lots of people had even forgotten that the event took place.
wow.
Um, yeah. So,
Well, what a treasure.
yeah, really. I mean, director Questlove Thompson began working with some people to find the footage and put it together to make this film, and also supplemented with these interviews with some of the people who performed there, some of the people who attended, and also some social observers who were offering their commentary on its significance. And they have come up with just one blockbuster of a documentary that is just stunning to watch. I mean, the performances are so incredible from all of this talent that, I mean, they're huge, huge names in the entertainment industry now. And to see them, when a lot of them were still getting their start and performing, when they were at the peak of their creativity and their abilities, it's just a phenomenal film. Um, it also, sadly, it kind of gives you a perspective into how much a lot of African American culture at the time was being marginalized. And that's evidenced obviously by the fact that the film sat untouched for 50 years.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and now, when it's been re-released in this film, people are looking back at it and say, "How could this stuff have been overlooked like that?"
Yeah,
Especially
absolutely.
especially with the quality of the performances. And the other thing I liked about this film too is the fact that the quality of the film itself has been remarkably well preserved over time. I mean, when you look at a lot of other things that are 50 years old, they start to look faded, or you know, they start to fray around the edges. This footage looks like you're watching stuff that was just recorded a few years ago. Um, so this one, I can't recommend this movie highly enough. It's just a really good movie to watch for its entertainment value. It's also a good film for its educational value.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it's readily accessible. I mean, it's playing on Hulu for streaming, and it's also in theatrical release at this point. So I strongly say go see it. I can't say enough good things about it.
Well, I'm really sad because I couldn't get it. There was a lot that you had listed. There was only a couple that I was able to see,
Really,
actually.
sorry.
So it's such a tease because I really
Yeah,
was like, this is going to be amazing. And this is going to be just like a movement in itself and a
yeah,
story within itself. And I'm so excited because as a movie historian buff of culture and African American music and culture, I am so excited to see this. And I cannot wait until, I mean, I'm in Canada, so our viewing options are very different than yours,
yeah.
unfortunately. And I can't wait to see it. So good.
Oh,
It looks amazing. And now after your review of it, I was like, well, I'm really saddened that I didn't get to
I
see it.
think you'll
So we
love
could
it. I
talk
mean,
about it.
when you see the performances by, like a young Stevie Wonder,
Yes.
and a duet between Mahalia Jackson and Mavis Staples is a
Oh,
tribute to Martin Luther King.
that's
Um,
amazing.
it's just such a great film, and this one definitely gets 5 out of 5.
Oh, no, you know what? I don't even have to see it, and I already can tell it's going to get my 5 stars as well. Okay, that's great. Hmm.
Well,
Okay, I like that. Next, what are we going to do next?
okay. Next, we have a film that is uh, it was a documentary that was the premiere, uh, the season premiere episode of the Public Broadcasting Service series POV,
Mhm.
known as The Neutral Ground. And this tells the story of a modern day Battle of New Orleans, in which there was a long, protracted battle over the removal of 4 statues and monuments erected in New Orleans that were honoring the Confederacy. And the city council approved the removal. And, a lot of people were very enthusiastic about that. A lot of people were very much against it.
Mhm.
So you really had kind of a modern day civil war develop over this. So this film was made by director C.J. Hunt, who is a line producer for Comedy Central's The Daily Show. And he was originally doing it as, I guess it was a YouTube project initially, but it became such a bigger story that he really realized that it needed to have a larger context to tell the story properly. So that's how it turned into this documentary, which PBS then picked up for POV. And it tells the story of why, from both. It tells the story from both angles. Why it was so important to see them removed, and why there was also so much resistance to their removal. And it gets into a lot of things that probably a lot of Americans have been reluctant to address. Specifically, the idea that the idea of the Civil War and the things that it stood for, they've tried to bury, and the idea of trying to bring the country back together, they were sort of willing to look the other way, even though the fact that the Confederacy stood for, and these monuments in after the fact were designed to preserve the memory of what the South stood for. And that includes obviously things like slavery, racism, white supremacy, all these things that, we find intolerant now, yet they've been standing for 150 years.
Yeah, I can't believe that. I cannot believe that.
And some of them weren't even erected until 50 years after the war was over with.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's this this unfortunate tradition that's been allowed to persist, and it's just something that's unacceptable these days. And this was about getting the statues removed. And the thing is, it wasn't so much about the idea of trying to erase history as much as it was about stopping the glorification of these values that are clearly not American, or at least we like to think they're not American.
They're not human, is really what it comes down to.
They're really not. And the way this movie is put together is it combines, excuse me, both kind of a cynical sense of humor with the ugly truth. The director poses a lot of his questions to the proponents of the statues with a very sort of tongue-in-cheek approach. And it gets you laughing to realize just how ridiculous some of their positions are. But at the same time, it reminds you of just how sad it is that they actually believe these things, which was the basis for why they want to see these monuments maintained. So, and the thing is that, it's not just limited to New Orleans. This is something that's like prevalent all over the American South. I mean, you had similar issues in Charleston, South Carolina, Charlotte, North Carolina, and unfortunately in Charlottesville, Virginia, where you had a protest that ended up turning violent and deadly over these kinds of issues. So the film is something that will get you chuckling at the right points, but will also really bring a tear to your eye when you see exactly, what's gone wrong with all of this. So the film, as I say, it was a featured episode of the PBS series POV, and is now available for streaming for free in its entirety from the POV website. Now, I don't know if you have access to PBS in Canada.
I tried, I tried, and I didn't have access to it either. And I was really upset because this was one of the. I mean, I wanted to see all of them, but this one reached out to me, and I just, I have just compassion and empathy, and I want to understand, and I want to help abolish, and I want to help, create and be part of the solution of equality and like not acceptance but integration, if you will.
Well, you're fortunate up in Canada not having the legacy of this hanging over you the way it does in this country.
Absolutely.
So it's something that I really encourage American viewers to watch, because I think it will really be an eye-opener in many ways in terms of explaining exactly what the rationale was behind all of this. Because it's something I think a lot of Americans just aren't even aware of. It was a glorification of a way of life, excuse me, that never really existed in many ways. I mean, they portray the South as being this genteel society where it's like, everything was like scenes out of Gone with the Wind, even though it has an ugly underbelly.
Yeah. You
And
know
that,
what, Brent? We know better. We can do better.
yeah,
And I really truly believe that people, you know, need to be educated in order to be able to do better. But we all know, you know, what's right and
absolutely.
what's wrong. And I
Yeah.
just have a really hard time trying to grasp so much of our history in that aspect. Like we know better. People know better.
And I was really impressed with the work that was done by the director C.J. Hunt. This was his
Hmm.
debut feature, and he should keep making movies. He's great at it. He did a great job here, and you know, again, I can't speak highly enough about this movie. So,
So you didn't see this one at a film festival. You saw this
yeah,
one.
actually,
You did? Okay.
yeah, it had its premiere at AFI Docs, but then it aired on PBS in its debut, I believe, about a week afterward. So
Okay.
it was like right before it went into public release. And as I say now, anybody who has access to the POV website
Yep.
can watch the entire movie streaming for free. So,
Perfect.
um,
Awesome. Please do.
and
I think it's really important. I think it's
yeah, and,
really important, you know, movie to watch. Really.
and this one gets 4.5 out of 5.
Okay. Why
Yeah.
did you take a half off?
Um, there were a few things about it that could potentially be seen as being a little too dogmatic
Okay.
on either side.
Okay.
Um, but fortunately, the director managed to keep that from getting out of hand,
Good.
which was good.
Good.
I mean,
Perfect.
yeah,
Okay. So 4.5 out of 5.
4.5 out of
And it's
5.
free on the POV website.
Yep.
Get it. Get it and watch it. I can't wait. I'm looking forward to it. And I will keep this list going because when it becomes available for viewership over in my neck of the woods, where am I living? I know it feels like under a rock when I can't have access to these. It's definitely one that I want to watch. It's just a real, that's a hard one for me. But okay.
POV is a great series. I mean, they have a lot of other terrific documentary films on there as well. And I mean, they have a new one every week.
Well,
So,
and documentaries are my favorite,
yeah,
all-time favorite genre. So it's really, I love hearing about movies that are being brought to not a mainstream or art cinema, but just to life, you know, especially like the Summer of Soul. And
yes,
this one, it's just, there's stories that need to be told.
yes, absolutely.
Okay. All right, let's move on.
Okay, so next we have a documentary that's currently airing on the Showtime network. And this is called The One and Only Dick Gregory. It provides a profile of comedian, civil rights activist, and health advocate Dick Gregory, who became an overnight sensation in the early 1960s. He started out working as an entertainer and developed quite a following. And because of that, he earned quite a bit of clout that enabled him to basically parlay that into other efforts, particularly the civil rights effort of the early 60s. It was something that he was very passionate about. And his routines quite often delved into kind of cutting edge material related to that. But after a while, he found that he just could not continue to sit on the sidelines. He actually felt that he had to get involved, which he did in a big way. I mean, he was arrested over 100 times going to
Mm-hmm.
protests and even did some jail time. But he remained truthful to his message. And then years later, he also became involved as an advocate for healthier living because he found that that played a significant role in terms of how empowered people in minority communities felt.
Mm-hmm.
And they were not being treated to adequate access to food, healthcare, treatment, and so forth. So that became like the next prong of his work. And this film goes through all of that, it details everything that he did, including interviews with his wife, his family, some of the activists that he worked with. And it also talks about his entertainment background, featuring interviews with a number of comedians whom he
Dave
inspired.
Chappelle, Chris
Yeah, Dave
Rock,
Chappelle, Chris
Kevin
Rock.
Hart.
Yep,
Mm-hmm.
yep, absolutely. Harry Belafonte. I
Yep.
mean, yeah, I mean, it's just a very long list there, and they talk about just how he ended up getting his points across by using humor a lot of
Yep.
time, which is
Yep.
something that people don't think. How can you make jokes about these things, but given the fact that they were very incisive and very satirical, they drove the message home.
Mm-hmm.
And he had, at least initially, a very smooth delivery for it too. So it came across as non-threatening, but it certainly, when he gave you his punchline, socked you in the jaw if you weren't paying attention.
Yeah.
That changed as he got older. As he got older, and he became a lot more cantankerous and raw, as he called it.
Mm-hmm.
But he knew that his life was, running out, and wanted to make sure that he made his voice heard while he still had the chance. So,
Mm-hmm.
but this is a really well put together film, profiling the various aspects of his life, and provides a shining example of somebody who embodied the notion of personal integrity. As one of the people who speaks in the film mentions, a lot of people, for example, in Hollywood, will come out and give these grandstanding, platitude-laden speeches about doing the right thing, and going on about justice and equality and so forth, and then they'll get back in their limos and go home.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas Gregory not only talked his talk, but he walked his talk also. And he was kind of a rarity in the entertainment business for doing that. So that's really another reason why this is called the one and only Dick Gregory, because not only was there just one of him, but there's also one of anybody like him in the business.
Yeah.
This film does a great job of showing that.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I got to see this one. I was so excited. And I admired him and the work that he did, but it also was how prominent and how respected and how admired he became by so many people for the work that he did. He really was an activist on so many levels.
Absolutely. And he kept working like almost right up until the end of his life. I mean, it was, I think they said in the film that he was doing concert dates as recent as a week before his passing.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, no, I really enjoyed this one. It really gave me a sense of, because I didn't know about Dick Gregory. Like I wasn't knowing of his history or how prominent he was in as a comedian and as an activist. So it was a real great learning experience for me to understand who he was and learn about his life and what he did, and how he was able to get his point across through humor. But he was very direct. He was like, he didn't mince words. Like he said it like it is, but he was able to engage his audience so it didn't become belligerent, it didn't become obnoxious, it didn't become really like he was lecturing. He was engaging but also teaching at the same time. It was the way he did it was the one and only. There's nobody else I don't think that's been like him.
And the thing that's really good about this film too is the amount of archive footage that it's included from that time, showing not only his activism but also his entertainment efforts, appearing on a lot of the early talk shows of the day, like Merv Griffin and Jack Paar and so forth. And you can see that he just became very natural at it and just like slipped in very unobtrusively into his appearances on these shows at a time when you typically didn't see very many African-American people on those shows.
Yeah.
And yet he was completely comfortable in his own skin and made sure to, do his routines and make his points as if he was exactly where he belonged at the time.
Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed the wellness component of it when he was running and he was helping that gentleman, that really morbidly obese man who couldn't leave his house, and how committed he was in helping this man, so he could change his life.
Yes.
And he was there as a support. He was like this coach on all levels. He really was dynamic in all of his ventures and how he was able to help people.
He was also one not to sit on his wealth.
Ew.
I mean, even though there were times when he made tremendous amounts of money, he reinvested it in all of his initiatives.
Yeah.
Because he said, I came from nothing. So, I'm not accustomed to really having it in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
So if I've got it, I might as well use it for something.
Absolutely. He didn't sit on it. You're right.
If only there were so many other people these days who've got that kind of wealth would take that approach to things. But
no.
So
another story.
As far as this one's concerned, this one gets 4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay, perfect. Yeah, and I really liked it, and I agree with that rating, and we can get it in Canada, which was a bonus. I really enjoyed it. Yes. Okay, moving on.
Okay, so next we have a documentary that tells a very interesting story. It's called Against the Current, and it's the story of a transgender kayaker who undertook the adventure of circumventing her native Iceland, going counterclockwise against the current. And the reason why she did it was the fact that she said, I've been going against the current my entire life. So this just seems a natural thing to do. And the reason she undertook the venture was to help promote the awareness of organizations that support people in the transgender community, particularly those related to helping those that are trying to cope with suicidal thoughts. Mm-hmm. And the film, which is gorgeously filmed, I mean, the cinematography is just stunning in this movie. It tells the story not only of her journey in paddling around Iceland, but also the journey of going through the gender reassignment process. Mm-hmm. And how she struggled with that when she was trapped in a man's body. So you're seeing this journey of self-discovery that's playing out on two levels at the same time. And the way that the two stories are intertwined with each other is so skillfully handled, because the kinds of things that she encounters while on her paddling journey in many ways reflect the same kinds of issues that she was going through when she was going through this personal transformation as well. It works on so many levels, and it tells a very engaging story of how he became she, and how the experience of going through that, as well as the experience of doing this kayaking adventure, helped to bolster her confidence and her recognition in herself that when she set her mind to it, there's nothing she couldn't accomplish. It's very inspiring in that regard. I mean, anybody who thinks that they'd like to try and undertake something and think, oh, I could never possibly do that, watch this movie. I mean, it will change your mind, given the fact that everything that she went through, if she can do that, there's no reason why any of us can't undertake the kinds of tasks that we want to undertake as well.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I am really sad that I didn't get to watch this one. It's like you're teasing me with all these really great documentaries that I can't watch. Again, another one that I'm really looking forward to watching. I love cinematography. I could tell just by the poster itself that I was just going to be engulfed with all the beautiful scenery and background and the story. The struggle. And like you said, I love stories that make me realize that my insecurity or my challenges are really not, I don't devalue that in my own personal experience, but it's just so inspirational, and it's so motivating to see the challenges and hurdles that people have made. And then you're just like, oh my gosh, mine's minor. I can do anything. If this individual can conquer this, I'm good. It just gives you that little bit of, boost that you need.
Yes. Yeah, oh, absolutely. More than just a little boost. It's a big boost. Yeah. I mean, it's really very inspiring and uplifting. Now, this film is available for streaming from a distributor called if you have access to that.
Hold on, Brent. We're freezing. We're freezing
direct
here.
Streaming of their films, and they've also done partner arrangements.
Okay, now I can hear you. You froze.
Oh,
you were talking, yeah. The internet was unstable, and you were talking about how it was available for streaming, and then I kind of lost you.
Okay, it's available for streaming from an organization called Kino Lorber,
Okay.
And they do some direct streaming, and they also do some partner streaming with like independent theaters and film centers,
Okay.
something they set up when the COVID crisis started to help make their films available. So you might want to try going through one of those channels to see if you get a chance to watch it. I'm sure it will be available on probably Amazon Prime and some of the other.
Yeah, I
Uh,
couldn't find it on our Amazon Prime. I tried that one as well. I tried Apple, Amazon, like a lot of viewing or streaming platforms, and I couldn't find it. But who's to
the,
say?
other, the other thing is this film is also kind of got a joint partnership distribution arrangement with another organization called Zeitgeist Films. And Zeitgeist oftentimes puts their films on Vimeo.
Oh, okay.
So that might be another option for trying to check it out that way.
Okay.
There may be a bit of a lag in Canada with the release, but keep looking for it. It really is worth it. It's a terrific film, and it's another one that I would give 4 out of 5.
Perfect. Okay, I look forward to this one. I look forward to all the ones, but this one especially. I have just this, I just have a want to see this story. Watch
Well,
this
Kino
story.
Lorber is very active in terms of releasing really good material, and they're responsible for our next film as well, which is called Truman in Tennessee, An Intimate Conversation. This is a really interesting take on the biographical documentary genre, where you're presenting the biographies of two people in the same film. And the reason why they do that is that its protagonists, Truman Capote and Tennessee Williams, were good friends and friendly rivals, but also they came from very similar backgrounds. So when you look at their collected body of work, Capote's novels and short stories and Williams's plays,
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of parallels in the themes between the works of these two writers, and also a lot of parallels between each of them and their own personal lives in terms of the way they grew up and grew into adulthood and so forth. It's interesting the fact that you're dealing with two writers here who were openly gay at a time when it was not very popular to do that. And the prices that they paid for that personally, and they both struggled with issues related to alcoholism and creative stagnation at times. But they worked through it, and they ended up producing this just tremendous wealth of work. The other thing I like about this movie is the fact that it presents voiceover segments regarding their relationship with one another that are narrated by Jim Parsons and Zachary Quinto. So you have this dialogue between the two that almost brings them back to life. That is kind of a running theme through the course of the film, as you're seeing, for example, archive footage from their lives and film clips from some of the movies that were made out of the works that they wrote. So it's a really interesting take in terms of presenting material in a biographical format, not just in terms of the fact that it's featuring two people at once, but in terms of the way their interaction with one another is presented in the format of the film itself. The film is not overly revelatory when it comes to things about their lives. They're both very well-known public figures, so I wouldn't say that there's really a lot of new stuff that comes out about them that you didn't previously know.
Mm-hmm.
But the way they're depicted is very authentic and in many ways very intimate in a way that probably has not happened before when it comes to stories or films that showcase their lives. So this is certainly a literary lover's dream to watch because it brings them back to life, for one thing, and it does so in a way that is fulfilling, enriching, and very interesting in terms of the way it's approached.
Interesting. Something that you just said there brought them back to life
Yep.
and retelling a story that has been already told before, but in a completely different way. That's very captivating. And, you'll take something away from it. You'll learn something from it, no doubt.
Absolutely. I mean, this is a very interesting take on their lives, one that certainly very inventive in the approach that was used to bring this about.
Okay, well, I couldn't get this one either. Shocking. And another one that I'll put on my list for sure to give a watch. Why did you pick this one?
Um, Basically because, you don't see a lot of films coming out addressing literary figures
Mm-hmm.
in quite the way, that it's presented here. It's kind of a cut above a lot of the fare that comes across the transom in the movie market these days.
Okay.
I don't want to call it highbrow. That would be, I think, casting a false impression on it. But just something that's a bit more sophisticated, a bit more enlightening than a lot of typical fare usually shows. So I'd give this one 3.5 to 4.
Okay,
Yeah.
not one of your highest, but
Yeah.
well, it's worth a read or worth a watch. Sorry, right? At least you didn't
Oh,
give it a 1 or a
absolutely.
2 and
Yeah.
give it in the dumpers. But yeah, it's worth a watch.
It's another one that comes through Kino Lorber. So I mean, there might be some way of searching it out through their website or through one of their partner websites.
Okay, great. Okay, moving on because
Okay,
we got
so
quite the list today.
yeah, absolutely. Um, so the next film is our fictional feature for this episode. This is a film, excuse me, that came from the former Yugoslav Republic of Macedonia. Excuse me, called God Exists. Her name is Petrunia. This is based on a factual event that took place in 2014, where in a small town in this former Soviet Republic, or former Yugoslav Republic, there was an incident where there was a religious ceremony takes place every year on the day of the Epiphany, January 19th, where an Orthodox Christian priest leading a religious procession takes a blessed cross and throws it into a river. And basically, at that point, all of the men in the village jump into the river and try to get a hold of it because it's believed that whoever finds it will end up having a year of happiness and good fortune. Well, in this case, Petrunia jumps in impulsively and she finds it. And when she's discovered to be the one who found it, there's just this tremendous outrage. How dare a woman even participate in an event like this, let alone steal our icon? So that leads to a tremendous firestorm related to, what happened. And everybody is trying to get her to give it up. She shouldn't have it, shouldn't be in her possession. And they try to get her to surrender the cross by means of coercing from religious figures and then from the police, saying that it's just not right. She shouldn't be doing this. She broke the rules. Well, when she's brought in for questioning, she says, I want to know why I'm being held. Well, you broke the rules. Well, you didn't tell me what the rules were.
Yeah. Yeah. How do I break them when I don't even know what they are? Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they were even trying to use the force of authorities to hold her to get this, to surrender this icon. She didn't break any laws either. I mean, the breaking the rules is not the same thing as breaking the law.
Yeah.
And apparently these people in authority just couldn't quite understand that. So it becomes her struggle to assert her right to hold on to what she's got versus these people who are doing everything that they possibly can, from intimidation to bullying to threats of physical violence, to get her to give it up. and the intensity of the situation tends to get inflamed somewhat by a journalist who believes that the story needs to be told. Um, she, of course, is also working to try and promote her own career at the same time. But basically, you know, you have this message coming along saying that this just isn't right. She needs to be able to hold on to what she's got, let her do it, let her go, stop bullying her, stop intimidating her. Now, the thing that I found interesting about this film is that it comes across at times as being a little heavy-handed, but when you see just the density of the male patriarchal culture that dominate Macedonia, you need to use a sledgehammer approach to kind of get it into their heads that saying what you're trying to do here is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know, the director, in production notes for the film, the director was saying that, well, this really was not intended as a feminist manifesto, because the principles involved could apply to anybody who's being, oppressed by authority figures.
Mm-hmm.
It could, easily apply to religious minorities or people in other similar circumstances. It just so happens in this case that women's rights are the central issue because it's what happened involved with a fact-based story. It's what's happened to the character in the film, and it's still something that apparently a lot of male Macedonians just don't quite get.
Yeah, exactly. She's a female. It involves religion.
Yeah.
There's probably a political component to it as well. And she's got and she's in an uphill battle for sure. I didn't get to see this one either, but I really like the premise of it. Like, go lady, I'm really like all for her, and I just really want to back up energetically her efforts, like in her movement, because this is not right.
Well, the other thing too is the fact that prior to the incident where she caught the cross in the river,
Mm-hmm.
She was sort of directionless in her life. I mean, she was a college graduate, unemployed, living with her parents. Her mom was like really trying to light a fire under her to go out and get a job and get a man. And there just weren't that many job opportunities available for anybody, let alone women. And many of the women who did get jobs were being relegated to positions like garment workers or secretaries or so forth, often working for very leering bosses who were trying to get them into bed.
Mm-hmm.
And when she went for one of her job interviews, she was just disgusted by the way everything went. So she started wandering the streets to collect her thoughts. And that's how she stumbled upon this festival of throwing the cross in the river. And it was a turning point for her.
Yeah.
It was a spark.
Absolutely.
It was a spark of inspiration that helped her to turn her life around. And it's in many ways, provides a very significant example of an undercurrent where miracles can happen.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And what's more, your miracles can not only help you, but they can be a tremendous inspiration for other people, even if you're not necessarily aware of that going into the event or of that being the intent behind it.
Mm-hmm.
So when you look at the title of the film, God Exists, Her Name is Petrunia, and that rings through really clear.
Absolutely.
Not only for her, but also for everybody else who is facing circumstances similar to what she's going through.
Mm-hmm. No, and it's a really great example of belief, trust, and faith, right?
Yes.
She continued not knowing the direction of what was going to happen, and a miracle did happen to bring light to put her in a different direction, to put her down a different path. That was going to be very inspirational for other people and part of a movement, a greater movement that she had no idea or no intention of even knowing when she woke up that morning.
Absolutely.
She didn't know.
And not only that, but I mean, not only was it trying to get to turn the heads and the minds of the men in the village, but also to turn the heads and minds of the women in the village. And in particular, dealing with her own mother, who basically says, just give them back the cross.
Yeah.
you know, be a good girl and do the things that women are supposed to do and respect
Yeah.
authority figures and respect, what they're trying to get you to do because it's for your own good.
Hmm.
And she just won't hear of it,
Yeah.
and she can't
Wow.
understand why her mother won't agree with her on it. So
Hmm.
that causes a very interesting schism between those two. But it's important in the fact that sometimes, you know, if you're going to institute revolution and change in a society, you have to go against, the forces that you're up against, no matter who is representing them, even if that means someone of the same gender,
Yep.
someone of your own family. Um, and she doesn't back down from that. She's willing to go ahead and, um, ruffle the feathers and make that tie a lot more tenuous than it was, if that's what it was needed to take to get to where she wanted to get to.
Yes. Go Petrunia.
Yep.
I love it. I love this story. And how many
So
stars?
I would give this one 3.5.
Okay.
Yeah.
Perfect. That's good. All right. We've only got a couple more here.
Okay, so one of the things I wanted to mention just in passing, there's another documentary coming out, that was a movie that Frankie and I reviewed last fall,
Mm-hmm.
called Mr. Soul. And this was a film that really kind of got the short shrift in terms of its distribution. It came out during the COVID crisis, and it played in very, very limited streaming and film festival capacities. And it really deserved a lot more attention than it got. Well, I just found out recently that it has now been picked up and is going to be available on the HBO Max streaming service. So if you have it in Canada, I hope you do.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I really encourage viewers to watch this one. It tells the story of the first national black broadcast TV series that was appeared on PBS from 1968 to 1973, called Soul. And it was groundbreaking in terms of being a showcase for black entertainment. And it featured the kinds of things you typically don't see on TV, like poetry readings and interpretive dance, as well as performances by a huge array of, artists and actors, and appearances by activists, and just a whole array of people representing various aspects of black culture. Um, the film uh, was made by, I believe it was the host's niece. Host was a man named Ellis Hazlitt. It was put together, I believe, by his niece, Melissa. And she came up with one terrific film featuring a lot of archive footage from the show. Um, and also, again, it likes the Summer of Soul. It presents a wealth of material that's a time capsule. And it's been remarkably well preserved. It shows all these tremendous artists, in their prime or when they were just getting their beginnings. Um, so I really encourage this. I encourage viewers to see this one if they haven't already, and I'm really thankful to see that it's gotten picked up for wider distribution.
That's amazing. I think that this was one of the ones that I did a search on all my platforms, and I I think it might have been Amazon Prime that allowed me, or maybe it was Apple TV. Anyways, I couldn't get it, but it was like coming soon or available August 3rd, or it was something like that. I'll have to go back and check, because I'm going to keep using these ones for
Yeah,
reference to see if I can still get access to them.
yeah, that distribution may be tied to the HBO Max release. They may be bringing them out all simultaneously.
Okay.
So, as I say, it's going to be available on HBO Max starting August 1st.
Okay, perfect. Okay, that's awesome. And
And
what did you rate this one before?
yeah, I did. I gave it 4 out of 5.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. All right. So those were the ones that you had put forth for our discussions of this month. But there was one that we talked about last month that I was able to watch. And we can take a couple minutes here and talk about that, because you really gave me the I've got to watch this movie. And I did. And I watched it.
And what did you think?
Cloud Atlas. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to share my screen so we can give our viewers a little bit more of the puzzle, of the poster. Okay, Brent. I really high level actors, right? You've got Hugh Grant, Halle Berry, Tom Hanks, a number of actors in this movie. And I was so jazzed to watch it. I was so excited. Too long for me to be engaged. I was like, I can't even. I just started getting twitchy. And I mean, it was a great movie. And I really loved the different characters that each one of them portrayed. At first, that was really hard for me to grasp. I was like, what is happening? And then I kind of got into it and I was like, okay, now I can see what's happening, and loved it. Loved how they just transitioned into these amazing characters. But the length, I couldn't do the length. I couldn't do it.
Well, it's something that I found that some people have been able to kind of watch in installments.
Yeah.
You know, they might watch like a half hour at a time or something like that. The thing that I loved about this movie so much is just the layers,
Yeah.
and the
Okay.
richness
Yep.
of the stories and the way they interconnect with one another. And it's the kind of thing that, with multiple screenings, and I've probably seen this movie 12 to 15 times now.
Wow.
You see new things every single time.
Yeah, I can see that. Absolutely.
Some of the things are so subtle, but when you recognize it, you know, you get the little light bulb going off over your head. And it's just tremendous to me in terms of the way it talks about how there's cause and effect, there's karma, there's responsibility, and that, you know, how can someone, for example, in one lifetime be the bully? How can they atone for that? Can they make up for it in a subsequent lifetime through being a hero, doing good works? You have some characters in the movie who never get it. They live multiple lifetimes and they're the bad person all the way through. You got other people who are just the opposite, where they do acts of altruism all the way through from one lifetime to another. And I think it's just tremendous in terms of the way you've seen individual actors play multiple parts and the way they disappear into the roles in some cases.
Yes.
You're like, that was them.
Yeah, and I had to do that. I was like, wow, like they took on a completely different persona, that they were identifiable, but yet very foreign. I was just like, who's this person? Who's this character? And then it was just like, bam. Oh, I couldn't even, like, it was not, I was not foreshadowing or seen, and it was not expected. And you know what? I did like that part of it. I liked like you said, the karma, and you could see the characters and how they transitioned or stayed the same. But again, it was the length that got me. So I mean, it was like 3 hours long.
Yeah, and actually, there's supposedly a director's cut lurking about somewhere out there that I've been trying to get my hands on a copy of it. That's about another 45 minutes longer.
Yeah.
And
longer.
Yeah. And actually, some of the people who in the film industry who have seen it said, if you love the movie in its current form, you have to see the director's cut.
You're on the search for it, I can tell.
Yeah. They said the director's cut is that much better.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? I appreciate the fact that you forwarded on, and that I was able to see it, so we could review it and talk about it this month. There was so many things about it that were dynamic, but the big thumbs down for me was the length. I just, I like movies that get me, wrap me in, and then we can leave. And this one was just like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know if I can take it. So you know what? Maybe I'll watch it in installments. Maybe I'll give it another try, because knowing that it was so long from the beginning, I think I might have gone into it with, I'm already exhausted and we haven't even started.
Well, the thing is, one of the things about this movie is there are parts of it that are very intense. I mean, particularly when you get into like the last half hour or so, where you start to see the 6 stories culminating. And when you start to see the parallels between one story to another, and you just think to yourself, oh my goodness, how could those people have gone through those kinds of crises multiple times?
Multiple times. There are multiple lifetimes.
Multiple lifetimes. And the way the film is cut, the way the segments are edited and interspersed with one another, I think really helps to drive a lot of that home, because you're going from one scene of intensity immediately to another scene of intensity in a different story track, and then to
in a
another,
completely different time era.
but the level of intensity in each case is just, it's the same degree of strength involved in each case. And one of the things that I think really helps to drive that through is the soundtrack.
Yeah.
I mean, I loved the soundtrack.
You are such a big fan of this movie. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
I love that.
this was made by the same people who made the Matrix series.
Yeah, I can see that.
And, I was not a terribly huge fan of the Matrix for some of the same reasons why you were a little bit burdened by this movie, because I always, when watching the Matrix, I was like, okay, come on, get on with it already. I get it.
Yeah.
But in this case, I felt like they upped their game in the fact that they did it. They told their story in a different context and made their points, and they did it in a way that didn't rely exclusively on special effects, which I think was the way the Matrix did to a great degree. So the other thing I have to recommend to people when they watch this movie is that it's not the kind of movie you can watch casually.
Oh no, it's not. You're right there.
You really have to devote your attention. I mean, don't take on trying to do ironing or hanging the drapes or anything like that while you're watching.
Do not multitask. No, you've really got to be committed to it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, you know what? We can talk about it next month and see if I gave it another try, and then we can come back and discuss it then. Our time is up. How is that even possible? Another month, another hour together, more movies to talk about. Always such a pleasure, though, Brent. I really enjoyed today.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, too. And for those who want to read more about all of these movies, they're all available in blog form, either on my own website or through the Movies with Meaning page on the Good Media Network's homepage.
Perfect. And BrentMarchant.com.
Yep.
They can always find you there, find out what your projects that you got your fingers in, and all the things that you've got upcoming. I love it. I can't wait to see what happens. Okay, until next month. I think I'm back next month. I think so. I'll talk to Frankie about it. I really hope so, because I can't wait to see what you've got in store for us next month.
Sounds good.
Talk to you soon. Thanks again, Brent. Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.